but at the same time, it can make massive changes in the quality and the quantity of your life. No matter what I speak about, I always start with the same question. I'm going to start today with the same question. Think about this and tell me if there's something more important to you than your health or the health of a loved one. I always say the only answer I will accept is the health of my child. Yes? We're in a culture where other things get placed on a pedestal. Maybe it's getting material things, maybe it's achieving certain goals. But would you agree with me that it sits on the foundation? Without that, we have nothing. Yes? By the way, this is a discussion. So, if health is our most important asset, what's our scorecard looking like? How are we doing? 50% of the people in this room will more than likely get heart disease. Out of the 50% that's left over, it'll be cancer or diabetes. If we look at people of working age, 80% have got one chronic degenerative lifelong illness. 80%, 8 out of 10. And 55% have two. The scariest stat, I think, and this came out of the World Economic Forum, at the rate of expenditure that we're spending on healthcare, by the year 2030, it will account for 75% of global GDP. Companies like Starbucks will spend more on the healthcare of their employees than on coffee. A company like GM will spend more on the health of their employees than they will on buying steel. In the US, they've just spent over $3 trillion in 1 year. And the word trillion gets thrown around, especially since the banking crisis. Let's just look at that number. How long do you think it would take you to count $1 trillion if I gave it to you in some duffel bags and put you in a room? Any ideas? 1 trillion. Throw something out there.
10 years.
10 years. If you had to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 100,000 years to get to 1 trillion. In the US, they just spent 3 trillion in 1 year. So, are we not throwing enough money at the problem? Are we not taking enough pills? In the US, they're taking 25 million pills per hour every single hour of the day. Okay, so something is wrong. And part of the problem, I believe, is the current deep of people of what is it that's making us sick. So there's 3. You're sick or well because you've got bad luck, bad genes, or it's bad germs. So you come and you say, Doc, I'm sick. Well, does your father have that illness? Yes, he does. Well, you've got bad genes. Take these pills. Next day I walk in, Doc, I've got something else wrong. Does your father have that illness? No, he doesn't. Well, you've got bad luck. Take these pills. Let's look at the genes. This is not controversial at all. Our genes have not changed in thousands of years. Obesity has gone up 50% in 10 years. The rate of all chronic illness over the last 70 years has gone up every single year, and the genes have stayed the same. Does that make sense? Genes have done this, rates of chronic illness have done this. Then someone will say, isn't it because we're living longer? We're living longer, so we're getting older, maybe there's more illness. The population is with children. What we used to call adult onset diabetes is now called type 2 diabetes. It used to only come in adults, but now we see it in children. So not because we're living longer. I want to show you a study. Who would have thought that a big fat yellow mouse would be important to you? Now that big fat yellow mouse is called an agouti mouse. And here's a gene that makes him prone to certain illnesses. So he gets heart disease, he gets diabetes, and he gets cancer. Just like us. So he has that genetic weakness. And it was often used in experiments because they could test drugs on the mouse just because it got the same illnesses as humans, yes? Until one day, a scientist said, I'm going to change what that mouse eats. So just before, I think, conception, just before the mouse became pregnant, they changed what the mouse ate. Guess what happened? The big fat yellow mouse started giving birth to a brown mouse that didn't get the diseases. So they changed one thing and the agouti gene was switched off. Do you think that's maybe an important study for people to know? There's this whole new science now of epigenetics that shows us that it's not the genes that control the biology, it's something else, which we're going to discuss a little more as we go along. A little bit more, 80% of chronic illness is preventable. This is in the New England Journal of Medicine. Out of Yale University, they said that your genes only contribute to 25% of your lifespan. Why is this important? It means that we are responsible for the vast majority of why we get sick and why we get well. And that's good news, because it means we are in control. It's not just if we pick the wrong parents. So, how do we get like this? We've got very clever people spending a huge amount of money. Why are we in a healthcare crisis? And I will tell you, I believe it's because at some point we separated ourselves from the rest of nature. Because we're human beings, we follow different rules to the rest of nature. Let me ask you this. If I took a chimpanzee out the wild and I strapped him to a desk for 8 hours a day, smoking cigarettes and eating Big Macs, would that chimpanzee be sicker or healthier than he is in the wild? I think I got a slide for this. Yeah. And if you looked at this chimpanzee and you saw that this chimpanzee was chronically ill, what would you do? If you were choosing to help the chimpanzee. You would say to yourself, but wouldn't you send for blood tests? You would say to yourself, perhaps the environment that this chimpanzee is not congruent with what he was genetically designed to be in, and the most logical explanation or logical conclusion would be, let's change the environment. The dog's vomiting, what's the first thing you say? What you feed the dog. Even when I was at university, we would study biology as one subject and physiology as another subject. It would be separate because we're human beings. We are separate from this nature thing. And I'm going to use an analogy for this. Everybody where in Canada you've got the Great Lakes. Now I think it was in the 70s, they had a huge issue there where all the fish were getting sick. And then I think the birds were getting sick as well, and it was a massive ecological disaster. So the fish were getting chronically ill. If I stood up in front of an ecology conference and I said, I'm Professor so-and-so, we've gone in there, we've studied, we've looked at all of these sick fish, and we have come to the conclusion that the problem is clearly a genetic issue with the fish. So we're going to build tiny little fishy hospitals and develop tiny little fishy drugs, and we're going to dump it into the river. And then I come back the next year and they go, okay, we've given you $3 trillion, how's it going with the fish? Well, they're sicker than they've ever been before. And then I come back the next year and they say, so how's it going? We gave you another $3 trillion. Well, they're sicker than they've ever been before. What would happen at the front of an ecology conference? I'd be laughed at. In this case, it was obvious that there was an environmental toxin going into the lakes. They addressed that issue, and behold, over a few generations, the health of the ecosystem was restored. Because they asked a different set of questions, because it was nature, not human beings. Is everyone with me, yes? Okay, great. So, what is health? This is probably the belief that changed everything for me when I switched this, because I'm going to challenge your belief of what health is. Let me ask you this. How would you know if I was healthy? What did you base it on?
How you look and behave.
How I look. Yeah, so maybe I look healthy. Complexion, body weight. Often people say your eyes, how clear they are. How would you rate if you're healthy? What do you base that on? How you feel. So the most common answer is I am healthy because of how I look and how I feel. Yes? Wrong. Okay, I'm going to prove it to you. This slide over here is a scan of someone's heart. On the top right is an artery that's clogged. So that person has heart disease. He has no chest pain, no shortness of breath, no arm pain, never had a sick day in his life, but he has heart disease. Would you define him as sick or well? Sick. But he feels fantastic. Who knows if somebody 45 years old, never had a sick day in his life, and on the golf course he drops? Statistically, the most common first symptom of heart disease is a heart attack. Let's look at another, on the other end of the spectrum. I eat a toxic food, and later on I start feeling nauseous. Next thing I know, I'm at the bathroom and I'm vomiting my lungs out. Do I look good? Do I feel good? But is that a sick function or a healthy function? Healthy function. You see, I used a different word, healthy function. In this case, the nervous system picks up, there's a toxin within it, and it expels that toxin to go back towards health and homeostasis. But I don't look good, I don't feel good. You see, when we define our health and how we look and how we feel, we become very reactive. We only do anything when we look bad or feel bad. Yes? Or we may mask our symptoms chemically and then believe that we've become healthier, which is not always the case. So we need a new definition of health. And to explain that, I'm going to ask you to look at the ecosystem. So I said we separate ourselves from nature. Now, for our minds to understand the human body, we often separate it into bits and pieces. Yes, the cardiovascular system, the GIT. But do you think the body works like that, in separation? No. You're actually an ecosystem of cells. About 37 trillion. We just spoke about how long it would take you to count to 1 trillion. Now say 37 trillion. And in each cell, you've got roughly 10 million chemical reactions per second. We cannot understand the complexity of this. And those cells work as an ecosystem, completely linked to each other. So let's think of another ecosystem, a rainforest. I've got a rainforest of 1 million trees. Does it make sense to you that if every tree is healthy and happy, then the rainforest is happy, the ecosystem is happy? Yes? Same thing in the human body. If you have 37 trillion cells, and most of them are healthy, then you are healthy. If out of your 37 trillion cells, some are sick, then you are sick. So the new definition of health is not how I look or how I feel, it's that most or all of these cells are functioning close to 100%. Everyone with me so far? And there's a new definition of sickness, where some of your cells are functioning in a state of stress rather than a state of balance, or functioning at 100%. Why is this key? Because if we can work out what causes your cells to move away from health, we've worked out the cause of all chronic illness. And then we can sort out the solution, the true solution. And now watch this. I'm going to tell you there's only 2 reasons why your cells move away from balance. 2. Yes, I'm saying there's literally 2 reasons for all chronic illness. Any ideas?
Food and stress.
Okay, it all falls under that banner, so it is correct. And I'm going to simplify it even more. 2 reasons. You're toxic in something that you don't need, or you're deficient in something that you do need. You have too much of something or too little of something. That is it. That is the only reason why your cells will move away from 100% homeostasis and balance towards sickness. So let's look at it this way. Let's put it on a scale between 0 and 10. 0, my cells are completely toxic, deficient, dead. 10, they have everything that they need, and they're functioning at 100%, and I'm sitting at 6. And for me, that expresses itself as high blood pressure and depression. So I'm sitting at 6, I'm toxic or deficient, and I want to get to 10. Everyone with me, yes? Which one's going to get me there, drug or surgery? Can a drug save your life in times of emergency? Can a drug make you feel better? Is a drug absolute necessity part of healthcare? Yes. But is it possible to take someone who is toxic and deficient and drive them towards health and homeostasis with those 2 things? Give your drugs to a healthy child. Do they get healthier or sicker? When we have toxicity and deficiency, our body goes through a response of stress. And hopefully what I'm going to get across to you now is how intelligent the body is. And I'm going to use an analogy. I'm going to say, what would happen to you if I threw you naked on an iceberg? Physiologically, first thing. Freeze would be maybe the end result.
Shock.
Yeah, shock would be just before that. Yes, you did right.
Breathing would slow down.
That may happen. First of all, you would shiver. Okay, your nervous system would pick up, the environment is not fantastic, and you would shiver. Next thing that would happen, all the blood would move away from your arms and legs and towards your trunk. Yes? Stupid or clever? Do you feel good? Do you look good? Ask the arm that falls off. Neither of those things. But the body will do anything to bide you time to change the environment you're in. If it gives you just a little bit of time to get off that iceberg, it will make you sick as a dog. With me? So let's use another example. And I'm going to say I'm drinking water out of a babbling brook and a tiger jumps out the bush. That's a stressor, yes? I release a hormone called cortisol. Everyone heard of that? The stress hormone? And cortisol's got a couple of effects. One of them is that it downregulates your insulin receptors. What does that mean? That your blood sugar stays high. In times of emergency, stupid or clever? Clever. Next thing that happens, increased platelet production. That's very important, as you probably know, for wound healing, makes the blood sticky. Increase LDL cholesterol. Who's heard of the bad cholesterol? There's no such thing as bad cholesterol. If you didn't have LDL cholesterol, you would die. So LDL and also in wound healing, and it's used as a raw material to create more stress hormone, should you require it. Any mistakes yet? No? Okay. Increase heart rate, increase blood pressure. Why would that happen? To pump the stress hormone throughout the body and get the blood to where it needs to be. If you're getting away from a tiger, good idea? Next thing that happens is your immune system, energy gets taken away from your immune system. Any idea why that would happen?
Provide the energy you need now.
When you're running away from a tiger, would you rather get away or fight your flu bug? So what happens is the body in its intelligence takes energy away from things that are less important, the immune system, towards other things that are more important. Your immune system is very... When you're sick, you feel tired because all your energy is being drained by your immune system. So it'll shift energy away from one to the other thing. Okay, so would you agree with me that nothing there is bad luck and nothing there is a mistake or genetic error in the short term? Let's look at it over years. How does that sound for heart disease, stroke, diabetes, changing your cholesterol profile, high blood pressure, depression, anxiety, behavioral issues? Is it a genetic error? Okay. So, in my opinion, we need two models of working with people's health. And we need a wellness model and we need an allopathic or a symptom model. And I'm going to call medicine in this analogy the fire department. So who do you call when your house is on fire? The fire department. And the fire department have got two tools which they're very good at using: axes and hose pipes. And if you call the fire department, they'll come in, they'll kick the door in, they'll spray everything down, and if they get there on time, they could save your house. And we must be eternally grateful that we have the fire department for that. Yes? Who would call the fire department back with an axe and a hose pipe the next day to rebuild the house? What about the day before the fire? Now, does that mean the person is not intelligent, or does it mean it's maybe not the right tool for the right job? What if we throw more money behind it and get more axes and more hose pipes? Will it then work? So the wellness practitioner, if he practices as a true wellness practitioner, he's a handyman. So he's got two tools. He's got his tool belt and he's got his hammer. And what he does is he'll come in regularly to your house and he'll say, you know what, those wires are sticking out. That's a little bit dodgy. And he'll patch that. He'll say, oh, your foundations are looking a little bit skewed. This could increase the risk of something going on. Let's patch that up. When the fire starts, he looks a bit stupid because he has the wrong tools. So he takes a step back. But if your goal is to prevent fires or to restore the house after a fire, who looks stupid then? How much money goes into the research of that, and how much money goes into the research of that? You see, what we're really calling health care is sick care. It's the treatment of sickness, it's not the restoration of health. And when you call sick care health care, that's when you get a sick society. With me? So what is the solution? I'm not just here hammering on about everything that's wrong. There is a solution. And I will tell you, it's so simple, it's ridiculous. All you've got to do is to learn how to do three things. You need to learn how to eat, how to move, and how to think. And if I had to stand in front of 10-year-olds and ask them, what do we need to do? Eat, move, and think. They would give me 90% of the answers. Yes? Because it's so simple. Now, we could do a weekend seminar on each one. But would you like to know in 1 minute what all that is? Okay. Eat well. Eat real food in its natural state. You get food made by nature and you get food made by a factory. Yes? Which one's better? What's better, vegetables or white pasta?
Vegetables.
Well done. You know nutrition. Eat real food. Don't overeat. And eat tons of plants.
That's it?
Plants. Fruit and vegetables. Eat real food. Don't overeat. Tons of plants. Move well. Always be moving. Move every single day, move all day, and as variable as you can. The body likes variation. Huff and puff every once in a while. Put your body through a bit of stress. Always be moving, huff and puff for a little while, and look after your spine. Think well. Massive subject. You could do a week seminar just on that one. Focus on what you have rather than what you don't have. Be grateful for everything that you have. Write down 5 things that you're grateful for every single day. And be kind to other people. This is the crazy part. When you make other people happy, you automatically get happy yourself. This is a secret that changed my life when I actually understood this. But if all we did was that, be kind to others and try to be happy, we would automatically be happy. Does anyone still want to come to my weekend seminar? There you go. Okay, so next question you may be asking is, why is a chiropractor talking about this? I thought you guys spoke about back and neck pain. Why is this whole model, this is chiropractic philosophy that we're speaking about today. And to see where it all comes from, we need to look at the nervous system. So, remember I said that health is how you're functioning, not how you're feeling, yes? So what controls all function in the body, of every cell, all 37 trillion of them? The nervous system. Okay, so there's a couple of parts of it. One is called sensory, that's how you feel things. The other is called motor, that's what causes us to move. And then the last one, autonomic, that's your organs. Blood pressure, heart rate. And that system is so important that it's completely enclosed by your spine. So you have the brain in the skull, you have the spinal cord running down the middle, and then you have all these pairs of nerves going out to every cell. Now the only thing I need you to understand is that in your spinal joints, you've got these little receptors. And when the spine moves correctly, those receptors feed information up to the brain. It's called proprioception. It's how we know where we are in space. Yes? That proprioception is a nutrient to the brain. Your brain requires it. If I to stop the proprioception coming from your spine right now, you would go into a coma straight away. So that proprioception feeds the brain. Let me ask you, sit at a desk for 8 hours all day and you don't move. Do you wake up the next day and go, wow, I feel so rested? Or do you feel like rubbish? It's because when you move the body, you stimulate these receptors and it charges the brain. How intelligent is that? Now you've also got other receptors called nociceptors. And what they're there for is to figure out if the spine is getting damaged. So when something goes wrong with the spine, those nociceptors send stress signals up to the brain. Everyone with me? Sometimes that goes to the area of the brain where you perceive pain. It's in the limbic system. Pain is actually an emotion in the brain. Sometimes it doesn't. That's why about 1/3 of people in their 20s already have disc degeneration with no symptoms. Because that input does not always reach the part of the brain where you feel pain. Someone will come in and say, I've got neck pain. How long have you had? Never. We take an x-ray of him. There's been degeneration developing for the last 30 years. But it wasn't felt as conscious pain. The other area of the brain that these stress signals go to is your hypothalamus. Why is that important? It causes the release of stress hormone. Is the chronic release of stress hormone a good thing or a bad thing? Does the spine sound important? Spine alignment, spine. This is a quote, approximately 80% of the baseline activity in your central nervous system is due to those receptors feeding the brain. So we are really self-charging batteries and movement being the charger. What is a subluxation? A subluxation is when your spine becomes chronically misaligned or it becomes stiff. What is that going to create? A decrease in the healthy signals. We become deficient in healthy signals and we become toxic in the stress signals, irrespective of whether you feel pain or not. Increased stress signals to the brain and releases that stress hormone. So most people are walking around, because of our sedentary lifestyles and the stress that we deal with the brain chronically releasing stress hormone because their spines are stiff and they don't know it. What's the solution to that? Oh, let's talk about this first, actually. Everyone's aware that I'm quite big on posture, yes? Okay, so let's look at the journey. We're at the top there. That is the function that you designed to express your nervous system. When you get subjected to a physical, chemical, or emotional stress, your functions drops, but you have a resilience. Your body adapts, so you go back up. Then you get more stress, but you go back up. More stress, and you go back up. However, if the lifestyle stress outweighs the body's ability to adapt, you go down, but you don't go back up. Later on, you go down some more, and later on, you go down some more. Slowly but surely, your postural alignment begins to change. Everyone with me? And then suddenly, when we go past that dotted line, we get symptoms. We get neck pain, we get lower back pain, we get headaches, we get muscle tension. So what do? We treat that symptom until we just get up to the broken line. What does the broken line mean? I'm comfortable. And then a week, a month, a year later, we crash again and we have another treatment. We're up again. A week, a month, a year later, we have another treatment. Over time, it slowly gets worse and worse, and then one day someone says to you, it's your age. It's bad luck or it's bad genetics. See, I want you to think of this. There's a rubbish dump, and around that rubbish dump is lots of rats. And I'm going to say each rat is a symptom. One is neck pain, one is low back pain, one is diabetes. What most people will do is they'll run around, they'll try and kill each rat. But the rats don't cause the rubbish dump attracts the rats. If you take the rubbish dump away, the rats automatically disappear. Okay, so in wellness care, We address the rat, but the main function of a wellness practitioner is to remove the rubbish dump. Can you see the difference in model, the different paradigm, and the different thinking? Okay, so posture. Forward head posture increases risk of fracture, early mortality, and impairs quality of life. That's the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports and Physical Medicine. Posture affects and moderates every function from breathing, hormone production, spinal pain, headache, mood, blood pressure. Roger Sperry won a PhD for brain research. He said that 90% of the energy that your brain uses is to adapt to gravity, and only 10% is for thinking, metabolism, and everything else. So most of the brain, your energy your brain uses is to hold you upright. Now let me ask you this. If you like this, and your brain is holding you upright, or you like this, what's going to be more taxing on your brain? Efficient. The brain has to work harder to do things because it's not in an efficient state. That's another reason why we look at posture. This is in the journal Spine. It's a medical journal. All medical doctors all did the study. All measurements of health get worse as the posture gets worse. So an adjustment. An adjustment's purpose, chiropractic adjustment, is to restore spinal movement at a segmental level, increase that proprioceptive input up to the brain, and decrease the stress signals. Now every chiropractor you speak to will say, every once in a while I get this patient where they come in with low back pain and I adjust them and they come back the next day and they say, you know what, I'm sleeping better. Or someone came in with neck pain and I adjusted them and they say, you know what, my digestion's better. What is this? Is it witchcraft? Or is it maybe that by restoring the movement, the stress hormone comes down in the body and the body is better able to cope or deal with whatever it is dealing with? So the chiropractor was not treating those illnesses. What he was doing was restoring function, and if he taught that person how to eat, move, and think, it's probably enough for the body to restore itself, yes? Because the body's self-healing and self-regulating. You know that we use technology here to increase the proprioceptive input. That's a device that is designed to move the joints back and forth at a certain frequency so that it gets that maximum input up to the brain and turns off that stress response. We either use the device or we use our hands. That's what an adjustment is. This is in the British Medical Journal. Chiropractic produces superior results in terms of safety, effectiveness, and cost effectiveness, and patient satisfaction. Recent research that's come out, Heidi Harvick, this is 2016, 2017, so very recent. She found that when she took patients that had no symptoms, but she found segmental stiffness, when they adjusted them, it improved the brain's processing of information and how the muscles react. The next study, they found that it increased the muscular strength in the legs after an adjustment. These people had no pain. And the most exciting one is they found that when they adjusted the spine, the area of the brain which it mostly affects is the prefrontal cortex. Why is that important? The prefrontal cortex is your executive decision-making part of the brain. It's where your logic, your cognitive thinking, even social behavior, parts of your personality, it all sits there. So when someone says, I saw a chiropractor, I'm thinking clearer, feels like the light is going on, maybe it's because that prefrontal cortex is getting the information that it required in the first place by restoring the movement. Nothing what I'm saying here is controversial. It's just physiology. That lead researcher, Heidi Harvick, is a superstar in research at the moment. She said that chiropractic care improves the health and function of the spine, clears the communication between your brain, your body, and your environment, so it can accurately perceive what is going on and respond appropriately. As a side effect of that, you often get less pain. Some other studies of senior citizens, this is over 75 years old, when they compared, so I think an insurance database, they compared chiropractic versus non-chiropractic. They reported better overall health, fewer prescription drugs, 21% less time in hospitals over the last 3 years. This is people that had maintenance care for 5 years or longer. They spent 31% of the national average for healthcare. They spend 31%. And patient satisfaction rate was 95.8%. I like this. This is Thomas Edison. He invented the light bulb. So he said, the doctor of the future will give no medicine but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the prevention of disease. More recent, this is Professor Paul Pilsner. He's an economist. He actually wrote a book called The Wellness Revolution. He said the sickness business is reactive. Despite its enormous size, people become customers only when they were stricken by or react to a specific condition. The wellness business is proactive. People choose to become customers, to feel healthier, reduce the effects of aging, and to avoid becoming customers of the sickness business. And really, that is a change in model, the proactive model. Okay, guys, any questions?